just gives them a chance to open up. It's not just another import in Immortals. It's the imports that got here because of their personalities, their gameplay, and their character.
This is Sharkz, the previous head coach of FlyQuest, the current head coach of IMT, and he worked on G2 way back when. He's here to explain what happened during the IMT offseason, how they ended up with this roster, and he tells us a few behind the scene nuggets that honestly are pretty interesting. So enjoy.
Immortals finished in a bottom recently for multiple years, so the goal was to do better than that. If I have to make players play solo queue one more time in my career, like I'd rather just retire. Like it should not be a thing. Who did you struggle against the most? Or like what mid laner do you respect the most? And it was pretty much mask. We at first he wasn't even in our list, and we're like, hey, okay, like who is this castle guy that everybody is talking about, right? He used AI to learn English.
So yeah, walk me through you getting the head coach position on IMT to like what was that discourse between you and management where you wanted to create a project, you wanted to start a project. What was the goal behind that project? Was it let's see what players we can get and then we decide what our project is, or was it we have a 2 year or a 1 year project and these are our options?
It was definitely a 2 year project, and what I knew the goals, and I knew the budget. Immortals finished in a bottom recently for multiple years, so the goal was to do better than that. And my own personal goal was to be able to get the strongest roster I can get on the market for the budget that we have, while having great personalities that I would love to work with. And I knew I wanted solo queue grinders as well. Like for me, it was like, okay, if I have to make players play solo queue one more time in my career, like I'd rather just retire. Like it should not be a thing. And I wanted to have development pieces because project is definitely not a 1 year. It's more like I would say even 2 years, 3 year. It of course depends, maybe like budget adjustments, how the league is gonna go. I would say LCS right now in pretty shaky spot. So I think, and from coach's perspective and from business perspective, it's a little hard to plan very, very long term, right? So let's say, just to give an example, right? We were on FlyQuest, we had specific budget, then boom, ownership changed, the budget went up, goals changed, and so on, right? I would say esports compared to, traditional sports franchises like, English Premier League, NBA, doesn't matter whatever franchise you take. Uh, it's hard to currently to plan very, very long term. So just hearing out Immortals, their goals, and I already previously knew some of the people on the management side, especially Robert and James. Um, and I think after FlyQuest, I don't want to call it a failed year because it was a great experience. I think result-wise, it was definitely a fail, but experience-wise and how much fun I had with the guys and with the rest of the stuff, despite losing a lot on stage, that was an amazing year. I think it was very refreshing to go back to the roots and have a development year, have a development project, because that's my comfort zone. Coaching in ERLs and academy system for a while, developing is definitely my strengths, and being able to have full freedom, being able to pick a roster, being able to work with less expectations. Yeah, that's I'm smiling just because it's my comfort. So it's just very fun. I feel very confident. I'm having a lot of fun, and that's what matters a lot. Um, so it was very easy with Immortals. Like it felt like I'm the right piece for them, and there's the right project for me to be able to enjoy and showcase strengths as a head coach. So that's it. That was easy, and then we just started the scouting process. I had some players in mind already. I would love to work if I would get in a development project. They had their list already, right? Because when I joined, they already had like a couple of prospects that they would like to sign, and we were pretty much on the same page. When they were telling me, I remember when I gave my verbal agreement, and they told me is a list of prospects that they were looking at or prioritizing. I got the goosebumps. Like I actually got goosebumps because of like we were on the same page regarding like what type of prospects I would prefer uh, on such project. So yeah, the process started. We started scouting, mostly just Joey and I, assistant coach who has already been in the Immortals, um, and that's it. That's it. To go a bit, I can go a bit about the roster right away if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. I just one
Uh,
quick question.
yeah.
Is Loyota not the one that did the scouting? It was you and
Oh,
Joe?
Lyota. No, Lyota joined very, very late. Lyota,
Oh,
I
okay.
think Lyota's official contract started um, January 1st, and Lyota's responsibility is scouting of enemy teams and some analytical responsibilities, or analyst responsibilities. Since he will be working with us in a little bit different roles that he was doing on FlyQuest. So no, he wasn't doing any, he wasn't participating in any roster management.
All right, thank you for clarifying. Okay, you can go into the roster now.
Um, After a failed year with a bunch of Korean players on FlyQuest, it's not like I had PTSD because I had a lot of fun, but I did want to move away from that sort of culture a bit. So I didn't expect myself to have three Korean players on the team again, to be honest. I did think, the roster most likely going to be like European American, like maybe two European players, three American players, or uh, and then when we started scouting, we started judging gameplay and personalities. It just ended up being that way that Mask and Castle are just Korean, like because I was judging players not by their citizenship, I was judging players by their personalities that I would like to work with, by their gameplay, by their character, by how much they value team play. And Castle and Mask just ended up matching everything I would like to see. Uh, and then I think all just impressed us. I definitely wanted to have some sort of like more experience, veteranship on a roster, and Ola got rank one after his military service, and the dedication, motivation still there. He already has a history in Immortal, so it was kind of a no-brainer, especially since he's NA resident, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the roster was just, I think the process was pretty fast, right? John was our first piece. Armao, I thought, uh, out of all the American junglers that were there on the market, he was the first one I wanted to go real aggressive towards, same as Immortals wanted. Um, as I thought he was always a bit underappreciated by the management and other coaches, and I was looking at him already like previous years, even when we were building roster on FlyQuest, like Centaurian, Spica, and Armeo were always on my list. And then 80 process took a bit time. We were deciding between a couple of players. And Mask and Castle, yeah, we were very excited to get two of them, especially because of their KT history, right? And I think bringing two players who already play together and have a good existing relationship, they had very positive feedback about each other. Yeah, it's just a very easy decision. I think what I definitely should share with the community, my goal was I didn't want to have language barrier. And that might sound a bit weird, right? Because we got three Korean players right now. But the truth is, my goal was okay, if we sign a Korean player, he needs to play outside of Korea in an English speaking environment at least for a year, right? So we look at Mask, boom, check mark. We've talked to Sheepy, we've interviewed Mask, great English, never have a single problem communicated to him. Heard only the best things from Sheepy, and Sheepy, head coach of Unicorns of Love, is a person I respect a lot. I think he develops amazing talent. All of his players, like it's like day and night before they go to Unicorns of Love and after they go to Unicorns of Love. So I would always love to coach a player if he was under Sheepy's guidance before, and uh, and we just watched a bunch of mid lane votes, talked a bunch of mid laners as well. One of the questions I like to ask, I would reach out to every ERL mid laner, is like, hey, who did you struggle against the most, or like what mid laner do you respect the most? And it was pretty much mask, 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 mask. I think Chimpen Pool playstyle, I'm very, very impressed. He's very, very mature player. His risk versus reward analysis in game is very impressive. Like he does remind me a bit about Chovy, where he pressures a lot while being safe. Like he can play one versus two League of Legends and be equal CS, be ahead. He's very, very disciplined player. And I think such discipline for second level of League of Legends gameplay, like at Academy, ERL, is very, very impressive. And then for Castle, whenever we interview players, we have this one question interview. Hey, who would you like to play with next year if you get to bring one teammate or like one player? And even players who never played with Castle before, but only like, played solo queue with him, especially Korean players that we interviewed, they're like, Castle, 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 Castle. And we at first he wasn't even in our list, and we're like, hey, okay, like who is this castle guy that everybody's talking about, right? He never played in the ARL, right? We were very skeptical towards his English, but let's interview him. And apparently, the story is that he is very, very good student in like, Korean school. Like he was rank one student basically. He used AI
Wow.
to he used AI to learn English, and he comes into interview, starts using some of the English words that I don't even know. Uh, I think he even prepared for the interview where he had like an article or like maybe used even AI to help you make an article about himself, and he like just read it out loud about him as a player. Uh, he has very contagious personality, and I think one of the things that impressed me, he does value team play more than any other Korean player, non-LCK Korean players that I've seen before. What I mean by that, let's say he will play a carry mashup. I don't know, let's say Akali into Camille or Akali into Ajax, doesn't matter. Something carry. And even like between autos or like autos or between laning or trading like level 2 or 3, he would casually just FK bot lane, FK mid lane, check what the situations are. He's passionate in team fighting, and I would say team fighting that's where he accelerates. And that's my values in League of Legends. So when we interviewed him, I saw this extremely fun, great personality that made me laugh throughout the entire interview. I'm like, okay, that will be hella fun to work with this guy. Very polite, disciplined, always on time. He never been on English speaking team, but his English is already better than most of the Korean players after they spend a year in like Europe and A. So that's it. That's the answer. That's the answer. How did we get Mask and Castle? That's the story. I think, whenever community gonna see more of them in interviews, analyst desk, any sort of Immortals content, Riot content, they will be very, very impressed and they'll have fun. That's definitely um, just gives them a chance to open up. It's not just another import in Immortals. It's the imports that got here because of their personalities, their gameplay, and their character.
That's very impressive. Just so people know, like in Korea, like school is so much different than it is in the US. So for you to be rank one is actually quite impressive. And the fact that he learned English using AI, that's just hilarious to me. So yeah, so you bring all these pieces together, but then at least last year in FlyQuest, you had a Korean coach. You don't really
Yeah.
have a Korean coach, even if like it's Ole. Like I've interviewed him, he speaks good English.
Yeah.
Maskin Castle obviously can speak English. There's also the cultural aspect. There's coming into
Mhm.
LA, which is different than playing on UOL, Unicorns of Love. Like the solo
Yeah.
queue is going to be different. The environment's going to be different. How are you going to like provide for them and make sure that they're comfortable? I don't want to like read too much into what happened to FlyQuest, but it almost seems like it was a structural failure because like when players play at MVP level and then stop playing at MVP level, you can kind of guess that it might not be their skill, but rather the environment and what's going on. So, like, how are you going to provide an environment that they feel comfortable, that they don't feel homesick, that when solo queue, you have like people that are
Yeah.
going 0 and 15 on Scion,
Yeah.
when they're trying to practice, how do you provide for that?
Uh, I think Mask is definitely more ready because of the, being for a year in Unicorns of Love. I think LA is way more fun than Germany in terms of not feeling homesick. You know, Cane Town, just a bunch of different nationalities, bunch of things to do. I think already has more Korean, way more. On the Unicorns of Love, he had zero Korean teammates and Korean coaches. Here, he does have two more Korean teammates. One of them that he played previously. Uh, and I think it comes from their goals and motivation. Their goals is they wanted to play in a tier one league. They're playing in tier one league. Uh, it was their decision to like come or not to come. So far, I don't think we'll have any homesick problems, and I don't think we will have. And I can tell you is, for example, Castle, he's a big fan of NA culture. Like he was telling us, for example, I don't listen to American rap music, but I remember in the interview process, he was giving us a list of four American rappers and like giving us song names and album names that he likes and he listens to. So
Wow.
the, I'm homesick, especially this year. My family decided to stay back home with the daughter and wife. So, but judging by Castle Smooth, for example, he's enjoying it so far. They've already went. I think 2 days ago they went to Little Tokyo. They went Cape Town. They're exploring it a bit. They're having a lot of fun. So, uh, environment-wise. My priority as a coach is I ask myself a question: why do players play League of Legends, right? Why do pro players play League of Legends? And the roots are they became pro players because they love the game. That's just the reality, right? Nobody
Mm.
becomes pro player because they hate the game. Most of the pro players they just play the game randomly. They become really good, and they're like, oh, I guess I can make money making I can make money playing the game on a professional level. So my goal as a coach to make sure that this enjoyment that they were getting from the game when they were just starting is still there. So the way how we build our process on Immortals, it's as a scrim, it's as a review, uh, trying to make it very fun and interactive. So they're still enjoying it the same way they enjoyed it when they just started playing and they were not pro players before. And I think when you are truly enjoying the process and you truly just do what you love, it honestly doesn't matter what country you're in. Like if the work takes, more than half of the bigger part of the day, So
Mm.
it's the goal is just for them to have fun. Of course, winning fun as well. I don't think in LCS too many people are having fun if you're losing. If you ask me if FlyQuest was fun, it could be better, Last year it could be better, but there are still very like a lot of fun moments that we just experienced together with the staff and players.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that. I don't think
And
I've heard of.
just to add, I just realized, the, all the things regarding how to not make them homesick is we're aware about it. Like for example, right now we have Korean chef.
Oh,
Our breakfast is yesterday was rice, kimchi, bulgogi. And lunch we have some soup, and yeah, we have like two Korean meals a day. So it's oh, hello. I guess I need to turn on the lights again.
oh, okay.
Uh, but I was joking with them that I'm a bit jealous. I wish I would come to LA and I would have national Belarusian food, but I don't get it.
All right, yeah. So I was saying that it's very interesting that you're the first coach that I've talked to that mentions even having fun as a team. That's not normally something that you really think about. I think I mean you've played with Impact, and Impact is a pretty like intense player,
Yeah,
and it
very intense.
so the idea of just like let's have a very nice. I mean, you described tactical as a goofball. Ole is very fun to be around. He's very charismatic. He's very like lighthearted and happy go.
Hmm.
So it seems like you're trying to build that environment. I think FlyQuest brought in Demonte as a performance coach
Yeah.
because they wanted to create a similar environment where things are lighthearted, but they're still like learning. So it's interesting
Hmm.
that we have coaches that are actually like paying attention to that because 2019 Team Liquid, it was like grind, 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 grind. Um, Tactical was on Team Liquid on 2020, and 2021 he often complained of burnout, and you could see like when he was playing on like higher tier teams, he started like regressing in form, and then when like all expectations were not on him and no one really cared what he did, he started performing last year, and it almost seems like he's someone who doesn't deal with pressure very well. But when he can play his game and he can live in this like carefree environment, he plays well. Is that something that is just something from the outside that we see, and there's stuff on the inside that we don't know about, or is that actually how it works? And how are you
Yeah.
approaching like that?
I don't know if Tactical shared it like lately, but from my conversation with him, he does have a lot of regrets the way how he behaved on TL,
Hmm.
and I think I remember watching. I'm very big fan of like all the content pieces, especially like with mic checks of the teams and all the background stuff. And I remember watching Team Liquid with Eddie, and there was like a dragon fight, and they won a dragon fight. And in this mic check episode, they're just showing 5 cameras of players, right? And I see as soon as the fight is over, 4 players instantly look at minimap, try to think about the next play right away. Like what's next? What's next? Doesn't matter, 10k gold ahead or behind. What's next? Very intense. And then tactical just shit, completely, on his own like emotional wave. And I was like, oh, my reaction was okay. He's not gonna be on the roster for long, because it's just. I remember it till now. My reaction now. Okay, this is. Uh, I do think there needs to be a healthy balance between like having fun and professional. From what I've noticed, first you need to learn how to be professional and learn how to be consistent and learn how to be serious. And when this is in your blood, when you pretty much have muscle memory of thought process, like how to play the game, what things to focus, where you can fulfill your responsibilities in game, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 in the morning, if you're super sad, if you're super happy. When it's just in your in your body, then you can start having as much fun as you want. I think the examples that I usually give to players is to Western players is the G2 roster, when they were the most dominant roster. They were having so much fun, but meanwhile they were showing an amazing League of Legends. And everybody was doing their responsibilities, everybody was creative. It's not like if they're gonna laugh for 10 minutes their vision control gonna drop. It's not like their wave management gonna fuck up. It's not like their sideline assignment's gonna be different. It's because it's already in their blood. There were that good of players for the West at that moment that they can laugh as much as they want in games. They will still outperform everybody. So when all the Western players got inspired, oh guys, look, they're having fun and they're just performing. No, boys, it doesn't work like this. It doesn't work, because usually when you go to like B tier players, S tier players, and they start having fun, first thing that happens, boom, focus drops. Focus drops, then they overstay for a wave. They late recall, they are late for dragon. And then in review, guys, why are we laughing here? I know this 2 versus 2 was fun, but like this 2 versus 2 kill and your guys' sheesh reactions or whatever, they're making you lose focus. Now you don't think about the next play. Now you late recall, and now the next play is bad, even though we just got advantage. So my philosophy, or like my biggest, not fear, maybe struggle, it's like biggest struggle as a coach to find this balance between having fun and try harden. And I think it takes years for players to learn. Like, Perks is good at it, Jankos is good at it, like Caps is very good at it. Like Caps, you can open energy to mic check. He's having time of his life. Meanwhile, he's still playing the best League of Legends in the West.
Okay, that's I mean, people do tend to think of G2 roster as having a lot of fun, and it's interesting that you point that out as an example of like, hey, we're gonna have fun, but we still need to be disciplined. And that was one thing that everyone talked about G2 is like they were always so creative and so smart with their map play and with how they do things, and it almost feels like they weren't systematic, and maybe because they didn't feel the pressure to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think
maybe they were not systematic like on paper, but I think their players' thought process was very systematic. Like I think Jankos is the person that pretty much connected all the puzzles, and this guy is just like he has structure in his thought process. They needed Jankos. I don't want to call it like a dog play style, but like they needed an utility player who knows how to use their crazy laners in order to be able to stabilize the game. If that roster didn't have Jankos, not a single other jungler in Europe back then could connect the pieces of puzzles that well.
I mean, Jankos is so good, and the fact that he has no ego, despite being how good he is crazy to me. Like, you can be the best jungler in EU for years on end and not have an ego and play whatever. Like, that's... Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he did it, but it's very impressive. With IMT, I think last year maybe we saw a lot of big coaching staffs. NRG had like their famous 53 coaches. C9 had a bunch of coaches. This year FlyQuest has positional coaches, and TL I think brought in Spawn, and they still have Rainover and whatnot. IMT basically has yourself and Joey, who's assistant.
Yeah.
How isn't that putting a lot of responsibility on the two of you, where you can't really delegate tasks and be as efficient as possible? So how are you dealing with that?
Just good old days, just like I said previously, back to ERL. It's fun. It's actually back to ERL, so the system is changed. So basically you don't have enough time, neither you don't have enough knowledge to educate all the players on like very, very high level. Let's say especially me working as a head coach on FlyQuest and then having more staff members, it shifts it more about from like individual coaching towards head coaching and delegating responsibilities, right? So I think throughout the years, my detailed knowledge dropped in the roles outside of jungle, because last year my responsibility was position coaching for speaker as well. So I did study a lot of jungle, but let's say my knowledge for mid lane or top lane or I would even say bot lane, it dropped in comparison to what it was to the scene in like 2018, 2019, just because back then, it was just me, an analyst, or me, assistant coach, and I needed to be able to study the roles, and I, was investing time into it. And last year, or FlyQuest for 2 years, I had Richard, who is still currently with FlyQuest, who was my position coach for mid lane and top lane. So for me, it was about, delegating responsibilities, checking on it. They were just doing their own thing with Impact Vikla or with Tukui and Philip and Kumo. So now it's time to catch up, right? But the structures that I had back on ERL or back on academy level, I don't think many coaches in the scene know top lane more than their top laner or mid lanes than their mid laner. It's mostly usually coaches understand better team play. Is like how to manage a wave better for the game plans that we have, where to put ward for the game plans that we have, how to involve your jungler or get involved. All this, how to use teammates or get used by teammates. But the way how I was helping players to get more knowledge in their specific lane, first provide them good resources, right? Maybe like YouTube channel. Like for example, right now what I'm doing is pro players have access to all the replay files, not YouTube POVs, but like replay files. So for example, right now we can download any LEC game and just watch it in our client. And I was surprised that a lot of Korean players, actually every single Korean player that I work with, they didn't know about these features that you can just download LCK replay and go study the lane phase. I just don't know why it's not a thing or why Korean staff doesn't use it. Hopefully they won't, because I think if they start using it, then the gap will become even bigger between East and West. But for example, yesterday, right, I taught Mask and Castle how to download replays. We have our own specific website where you can do it with one click. You just drag the replay file on top of the client, and boom, you can watch the entire lane phase of any matchup, any professional players that you want. And I teach them how to observe knowledge, how to get knowledge, what to pay attention to, and then it's on their own, right? So me knowing that I'm going to be using the structure during the interview process and when we're building roster, I'm already considering how self-sufficient, how disciplined the player is. Will he be able to be part of my structure where there will be a lot of studying on his own, but I'm just going to be providing structure? That's, I guess, the trick number one. And the trick number two is an example that I give to players is, so first, League of Legends is too young, right? How old is League of Legends right now? 13 years, 14 years?
Going on 15 because it came out
15,
2009.
15,
Yeah.
15. Okay, so before I was saying, 6 years, 7 years. Crazy how fast time flies. So and soccer, sorry, you see 3 years in Los Angeles. Football, the real football, tennis, basketball. This sports are very old in comparison to League of Legends, right? And the other thing is that the rules in basketball, tennis, football, they don't change. In League of Legends, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we have patch notes. Good luck, adapt. Right now, half the items are new. It's just, imagine in tennis that we change the court of the sides. The net is now 2 meters longer. Now you cannot use this rackets. You have to use small rackets. It's just, imagine, right? Like players wouldn't be able to have 15-year dynasties, right? Novak Djokovic, right? But the game is the same, right? And he can rely on his experience. He can take a 2 months break and he won't feel left out. In League of Legends, you take 2 months break, you have no fucking clue. Sorry for my language. You have no clue what's going on in the game. Like, you just don't know. You gotta go and read patch notes for first 2 hours before you go in the game. So, what I'm telling players is, just imagine that your Discord with other pro players, where you have the contacts of other pro players, it's like a library. It's like a bookshelf, and every player it's a book, and you can go message them. It's like going to a library and trying to open a book, and this book might open and share some knowledge with you, or it might not open because the player doesn't want to communicate. So since 2017-18, I was trying to create a network between players. Discord chats, Discord groups. Back then it was TeamSpeak servers. I think I got inspiration 2017. I remember, I think it was Perks, Febiven, and Nukeduck. They were the three best players in European LCS back then. and they would have their TeamSpeak server, and after scrims they would just go share knowledge about the matchups. They would just play 1-on-1, and by doing it, they created a big gap between 3 of them and the rest of the mid laners in the European LCS. So in reality, I personally think, let's say Mask. If Mask spends 1 hour with Cups, he's probably gonna learn more about mid lanes than spending 2 months with me. And I'm very open, and I think most of the coaches should be open about it. So for me, it's about how to make them buy into this, that approaching other players for feedback or trading knowledge, that's the best way for you to improve. And it doesn't, of course, you got to trade some knowledge back, right? But let's say, even if we talk about LCS, right? Of course, we're competing against each other and everybody wants to LCS trophy. But it depends on your goals. If your goals are bigger, if your goals are, for example, winning worlds, going to world quarterfinals, you guys here in the same boat. Your guys' boat is you're trying to catch up to the East. So in order to catch up to the East, maybe helping each other and trading some knowledge is better than avoiding each other and not trading any knowledge, right? But then it depends, of course, the amount of respect players have, right? Maybe Mask says every mid laner shit. I cannot learn anything from them. I'm just gonna shit on them in LCS. I don't want to share any knowledge with them, right? It depends. But I think the idea of a player learning from player, even from different team, is good. I remember I went to Worlds with Gambit 2017, and I worked with Diamond Prox and Advert on the roster. And when I shared Diamond Prox, because we were screaming Unicorns of Love, we were screaming some other teams. I like, hey, just message him. Like if you don't know why he's doing this passing, just like add him and talk to him. And he called me like, Alex, you're crazy. Why would I? Junglers have the biggest egos. They're like, why would I talk to other jungler? And then I remember 1 week later, I cannot talk to him because he's typing to Xerxes all the time. And Xerxes was the Unicorns of Love jungler, and they were just talking to each other 24/7 about jungle. And he's like, "Oh, this is so helpful. I learned so much."
Wow.
But that's just the concept of. So I here in terms of just individual development and the individual learning is just studying replays and talking to your peers about your role.
I will say that in North America, like it does kind of remind me what you said of like ERLs or like 2014, 2015 NALCS when you had like a fringe pick show up and then you'd have all the pro players going to the one trick and trying to get like, coaching from him or whatnot. But it's been, I guess it's common knowledge now that NA players and coaches do not like sharing information. I think when Academy was introduced, people didn't want to talk with their second because they didn't want to be training the replacement. And we're sort of very, very selfish, at least in North America. Whereas in Europe, it seems like you said, you had Perks and Nuke Duck and Fevivin, like all sharing information. And that definitely does help. And I'm actually, I didn't expect this to pop up, but I'm very glad that you're trying to like promote that because it feels like it died a while ago in North America.
I think it just depends on goals of and the culture of the organization and overall LCS goals, right? Like it's, I would say players tend to play a lot of 1-on-1. That I was surprised. I can tell you at least by FlyQuest. Impact is a big 1-on-1 player. He has his specific like 1-on-1 partners that he would play with. He played quite a lot last year. I think Revenge was his like go-to 1-on-1 partner, but then I think he was playing with Hoon. I think he was playing a bit with Hoon as well. Vikla played quite a lot with Jojopyun, especially in the beginning of Summer Split, and that helped a lot. Players tend to practice 1-on-1. I would say solo laners in general tend to practice more like 1-on-1s than bot laners 2v2, but it's still, it's there.
Oh, that's a good sign. My last question for you is a bit of a weird one, but let's say G2 comes to you and says, "Hey, you're the new head coach of G2," and Immortals are like, "Yeah, go ahead," and you have to find us a replacement. Out of all the coaches, doesn't matter if they're signed or not, who would you trust to take this core of IMT and really develop like the rookies and not a lot of resources clearly, just him and Joey. Who would you throw into that situation?
Probably Shippy.
Sheepy?
Yeah, I mean he has great experience of working with Korean players, and he already worked with Mask. I think Unicorns of Love already have like existing relationship with Korean agencies where pretty much they keep importing like Korean players of the player, right? Like where they had Peach and Mask. I think now they have someone else. I don't remember who exactly they got, but yeah, I think he has very great mind for League of Legends coaching. Maybe it's a little bit more on the stricter side that I would like personally, and my philosophy a bit different. But yeah, for this roster development project, some discipline and some spanking wouldn't hurt.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to shout out or something you wanted to talk about but weren't able to expand upon?
Shout out to all the Immortals fans. Shout out to all the player fans. We get the great fun roster. I think the season might start a bit shaky for us because it's just too early and there will be inconsistency. But I think by the end of the winter split, by the start of the summer split, you guys will have a lot of fun watching Immortals. And just cheer for us. Cheer for us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching that video. It would mean a lot to me if you subscribed. We're over halfway there. We're at 555 at the time of this recording, which means we'll only have 445 to go until I can apply for the LPP when it opens up. So thank you everyone for sharing, subscribing, and leaving your comment. It definitely helps the channel. So thank you.